Go ahead.
All right. Welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is March 7th, 2021. We're speaking with James and Amanda.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. If you would like to support the channel, please subscribe to it. The channel is growing, and the more people that see this, the better it is. So you were a staff in 2012 to 2015.
Correct.
And you did not sign an NDA, which is a non-disclosure agreement, or an ADA, which is an anti-defamation. Now, what strikes me, to start off, what strikes me is why would a Christian organization who's supposed to love, cherish, and help these kids want you to sign a non-disclosure, which is basically whatever we're doing there, don't talk about it when you leave.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
You think that you'd want the love to be publicized. You would think so. But you can't. You can't say anything to the media or, of course, allegedly you can't say anything to media. There's still some questions through some lawyers whether the paper's actually legal or not. So you can't. But we've pretty much proven that it's illegal because you can't be forced to sign something like that under duress.
NDAs are legal, but the ADAC, the Anti-Defamation contract that Agape boarding school tries to force staff and non-staff to sign is illegal. That's what our attorneys told us. Yeah, because
we were forced to sign under duress, under threat of being fired or losing our home, and which ultimately happened to us. We ended up getting fired from there. So we can point to a lawyer and say, hey, look, this happened to us. Yeah, you can prove that staff were signed under duress, under pain of their job. So.
Wow. But how could you lose your home? Were they paying for it, or were you in some sort of house at the ranch?
Yes.
Okay.
All staff at that time were required. I'm not sure what it is now. Were required to live on property. You cannot move off property. You had to live on property.
You can't transfer unless you're like maybe high ups with the inner circle. You can't really choose where you live, so you could have like 9 kids or 6 kids, whatever, and the house way too small for you, and they won't take sympathy. Like I knew when we were there, a family had a lot of kids, and they wanted to move in town or get a different house, and they were refused. They were denied.
Yeah, there was a family when I was there that had 6 kids, and at the time when I was at the school back in 98, 2001, or sorry, 2002, most of the staff were living in it was just a mobile home, right? Or like a trailer, mobile home trailer, right? Like on cinder blocks. Like, was it the same?
They were nicer. They were nicer when we were there. They were like the double wide prefab houses type thing. So they were okay.
They still catch fire really fast.
Yeah,
they've had fires.
Dang.
But, and it's kind of their fault because like the entire time I was there, I didn't see a single fire hydrant on property. Nothing.
No, they had them though.
I don't know where. They didn't, as landlords, they did not take care of our property.
What strikes me? Go ahead. No, go ahead.
We think that we were kind of targeted against even with our property because I would fill out maintenance reports and requests to get some things in our house fixed. We lived for 2 years without AC or heat, and to where we kept filling out reports and they wouldn't come out and fix them. We had door frames that were falling off just from the house settling, and how cheap the houses were made. The door frames were falling off and doors were falling down. One day we were sleeping in bed and the door falls off, and we're like, "Wow, what in the world?" So we filled out a whole bunch of reports. Nothing ever got fixed. And then when we ultimately did get fired and moved out, they went and told everyone we trashed the house. We filled out all these reports saying, "Hey, these things are getting fixed. Need to get fixed."
Right.
And it just.
Mice and roaches the entire time we were there. We moved in, saw dead roaches in our shower and mice turds all over. It got so bad, and I didn't get a lot of groceries. I just shoved everything in the fridge, and we eat in the dining hall.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Food. But the mice got so hungry that they were eating my spatulas and all my plasticware. And I'd always see I couldn't even get silverware out without having to sanitize everything. It was climate. Mice were everywhere, and I left quite a bit of my kitchen stuff just because it was too mice eaten.
Wow.
Right.
And they didn't do anything about it. And we're not the only staff whose homes were neglected. Maybe other staff will testify, maybe they won't. But one lady, she said she had mold in her kitchen for over a year on a wall.
And you said-
it was growing and making her sick.
You said this was a double wide, right? Like a
Yeah.
trailer?
Yeah.
So the Clemensons also had a double wide trailer, or did they have a nice immaculate house?
Oh no, their house was attached to property, attached to the dining hall.
There
They
you
have
go.
their own indoor swimming pool though
Yeah, they had indoor swimming.
in their house.
Yes, they did. I never saw it, but apparently, allegedly they did.
And
So-
a parent told me that she went into Kathy Clemenson's bathroom and she said, "No, I'll go in the ladies' room." And she's like, "No, that's farther. Come into my bathroom."
Wow.
And she invited this grandparent over, and Kathy had all these boudoir style photos blown up all over her walls of her in positions and wearing legible clothing. And she says, "If my husband's gonna look, he better be looking at me." It's all in her bathroom. Wow. It's kind of a narcissistic trait. It's just-
Kind of
Wow.
scary.
I don't want to visualize.
Yeah.
Too late.
Wow. So how did you guys like get to? Obviously, you went to Agape. You heard about it. Like, I'm wondering, 'cause we always hear about the students, how they got sent there. They were
Of course.
acting out, but staff, like, how did you guys hear about it? What brought you there? Did you go tour the property first and then decide to move? Like, how? If you could walk us through that, I'm just really curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. We went to Howes Anderson College, which of course I have my own issues with that place to begin with, and I went for youth ministry, and so my whole mindset, I want to help teens, get their lives on track. That was my whole mindset. So then Kazak, which was the president of the time of the school, came and he to the school and he's like, "Hey, we're looking for staff members, and we have a whole bunch of troubled teenage boys that need help." And my thought is, "Oh man, dream job!
Right.
Yeah, look at this.
Right.
I want to go help troubled teenage boys. All right, great connection." So I go talk to him, and then I go down for a week, and I didn't see anything that was really red flags when I did my week visit. Of course, I found out later that whenever they had visitors, things were always above par. And so I went there, and I did my whole week of or 3 days, whenever it was, of shadowing and just checking the place out. I told Rich Kazak, I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love to work here." So, and that's essentially how I got there. That was in March of 2015, and then I moved down there in May of 2015 and started my time as staff.
My brother was a student at
Yes.
Agape for 2 years.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Scott Stein.
2001.
He's in jail serving like a decade sentence, but whatever. That's
2001?
here or there. It didn't.
What was that? Sorry.
2000. I was there in 2001.
Yeah, Scott Stein. He was there in
Scott
2001.
Stein. He was young.
He was like
He
12.
was one of the 12-year-olds, ma'am, or Kathy perved on. Like, she'd always give him hugs and special treatment. You know the little ones, the younger.
Yeah. There was a whole dorm dedicated to the young kids. Like, I was
Not anymore, yeah.
Yeah, at the time. That's okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead. That's
He was
interesting.
young.
I didn't know your brother went there. Wow.
And then I knew of Agape because it was always kind of like the threat where I grew up. If you're a troubled teen boy, they're going to be sending you. In other words, if you are a boy who's starting to rebel against your parents' totalitarian rules, and you're starting to see some hypocrisies in what's being taught and what's being lived in the people around you and in your home, and you start to act out being a normal teenager, they're going to peg you as rebellious and laying down the wrong path, and your terrible parents are going to send you off into Agape, states away where they can't monitor you, where they say that you're being taken care of and provided for. But sometimes fundamentalist churches that are really extreme like to see their loud voices in the young men, the teenagers, and kind of ostracize them from the rest of the community so they can't make other people ask questions too, because they fear rebellion.
But we didn't know anything negative about the school because Scott was really one of Mam's favorites. So, of course, he got away with a lot of stuff that they could have got away with. If you're a favorite of Mam, then you're on the golden track.
Yeah, 1/3 of the students she loved, 1/3 she hated, like loathed, and 1/3 was invisible to her.
I wonder
Same with
if she invited him to her bathroom.
Oh, I wonder.
He
Poor
still
guy.
loves her.
He does.
He's got Stockholm syndrome for sure. Yeah, and I think my parents, they said they were paying a mortgage, maybe even a double mortgage at the time. But they said that their payments to Agape were more than any of their other bills combined. So,
Wow.
like, they paid well over $60,000 to send my brother there. and it did no good for him. His behavior did not change at all.
So
Wow.
what was initially your job, James?
I worked in the
There.
school staff. I just worked in the school. I was just a helper there, especially my new times there. They didn't know me. I didn't know them. And I got there. There wasn't really much training at all except for shadow for a couple days. Come to find out pretty quick that, the PACE situation, you're using PACEs, ACE, horrible education method.
Garbage.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It is garbage. Completely garbage.
If it's done the way it's supposed to be done, it
But
could be.
They could be, but none of the teachers
do
were ever
that.
qualified to be able to teach.
Right.
And so it was rough. I ended up eventually, I taught myself when I went through all the trigonometry paces and did the calculus stuff. I ended up being the one who taught the upper level math. And I was the only one that knew any of it. So whenever, and I didn't even teach the high school. I wasn't even in charge of the high school section. I was in charge of the students who did not want to do schoolwork. And my job was to get them to do schoolwork. They called it the bus stop, which is the bus stop to Browntown. If you don't do your schoolwork, you're going to Browntown. And
Which is terrible.
yeah, which Browntown's a whole other story, of course. Which,
You're given pinto bean tortillas, like tortillas with pinto beans, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
it was probably worse when you were
Weeks at
there.
a time.
But
Yeah.
You can't do that.
They put kids on salad diets like back then, but because Agape will boast that they have these school staff, like certified and all this other kind of stuff for education. Nothing against you by any means, but
of course,
you were not. You didn't go to school to become a teacher. You had no
I did not.
experience being a teacher, and they put you right in the school as a teacher to teach
Correct.
the kids, right, and answering flags and doing stuff like that, right?
exactly, and that goes to one of my main problems about Agape. One of my main things I speak out against. When I was quoted in the Kansas City Star, Agape responded to that article saying that I said, was it a former staff member? I was the former staff member that was quoted. Said that this former staff member said that we don't love the boys. I never said that the staff didn't love the boys. I said the staff are grossly underqualified to deal with troubled teenage boys. They don't have the licensure, they don't have the training, they don't have the experience, and at that point, this inexperience is a detriment to these boys. Wanting to help the boys, wanting to help them have a good life, only goes so far. If you don't know how to accomplish it, then you're just going to make it worse. And that's my main issue with Agape. You have all these people who don't know what to do. They are grossly underqualified to deal with teenage boys.
Don't they certify you, like with the ACE system?
Eventually, when I was there, we all ended up getting a license to teach through a Church of God association. So mine expired in 2019. But I don't like it's essentially, hey, pay to get licensed and no tests. Now, Kazak, before he left, he was talking about sending all of the staff, paying for all of the staff to get degrees in teaching, which I thought would have been great. Okay,
Right.
awesome. You're going to pay for us to get degrees so we can actually teach properly. But then he ended up getting left, and that idea got tossed to the wind. And we ended up just getting kind of a pay, here's money. Thanks for giving me a license to teach in Christian schools.
He's the one who admitted to me. He says, okay, we got, in a couple days, in tomorrow, whatever, this educator from the AC curriculum is coming here and making sure we're administering things. He's just making sure everything's running as supposed to. So we have to clean all this stuff up. And then as soon as they're gone, everything goes right back to normal because they don't understand, literally was said, they don't understand how we do things here. And how they work, it just will never work with us. We just have to do things our own way. So they admittedly stated that while we say we do it the curriculum's way, we throw it away. We do it however we feel like it.
If they really want to fix this PACE program, what they need to do is they need to come in unannounced. Because you you tell somebody a day or two ahead of time, that gives them a chance to clean everything up, like you said, and get everything to where it looks like
It
Yeah.
looks like we're all on board, but we're not.
Yeah.
None of the staff are on board.
But that's a problem because the Clemensons admit, they said in the office to me that nobody can come on our property without our permission. And so we invite state inspectors to come and we'll clean before they come, but nobody can come on our property unless we let them. And they can, stand inside, but they can't go in here to this school. They can't look at anything we're doing without our permission.
And that's just the law. That's the law's problem. The law allows them to have that, which that law is not even being addressed in this whole issue, in this whole thing. I just talking about the Missouri legislation. it's something, but I'm not even closely satisfied to what they're talking about.
Right. 100% same here. Like it's a step, a small step in the right direction with something like attention being brought to these schools and what they're doing. But my biggest fear is that it's going to stop there. They're going to say, "Hey, look, we did something. We made these changes to make things better," but it doesn't really change anything because these schools are just going to morph and adapt and do whatever they can to still operate the way they want, or move to another state that just doesn't have the same stuff that Missouri has. But I agree with you. It's exciting, but frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, I thought that, oh man, they were going to tackle these things. I thought they were going to hit these issues, but they haven't. It was just, okay, yeah, we're going to require that you guys register with us and that you guys have background checks. Okay, that doesn't do anything.
But those background checks, they don't.
But it's a step, so I'm praising God for the step. But
this like, I'm not sure what you're about to say, Amanda, but the background checks, like some of the staff when I was there, they were just students that graduated and they brought on staff. So obviously there's no background check that needs to be done on those students because this is their first job in the real world, and these are the ones that are beating up and abusing the kids, so it's like nothing's going to show up on that background check and the abuse is still going to happen. But
they've hired they've knowingly hired predators and perverts. They've knowingly done that.
Well,
we've heard about those.
Back in 1980,
you heard about those?
No, we have heard about those.
Okay.
They're looking for cheap labor, desperate people.
Yes.
Who can't figure out how to make it out in the real world. They go to places like, okay, look, you're gonna live on our compound. We're gonna provide you housing. We have food that you can eat, and we're gonna give you money. You're barely gonna be able to afford anything, and your health insurance is like non-existent. But and people get desperate and they don't know how to live outside that system, so they stay there for a long time.
Well, you get trapped. They pay staff so little, you can't move.
And they boast about that. They say, you better be grateful. Thank God that we pay you so little, that you're so close to poverty wages, because then when you get pregnant, ladies, you'll qualify for WIC and Medicaid.
Yeah, we actually got paid at $1,400 more than most staff, just because I had a youth degree.
$1,400 more?
No. We got paid $1,400. Most staff got paid $1,100
per month.
$1,100, $1,200, $900, $800 a month. So think about it. How can you save up at all to be able to move away? You're stuck there. Right. So they do that. They give you your home. They give you a low salary. And what happens to staff is they get stuck to where even if they want to leave, they're either facing homelessness, or they have to wait until they can scrape out some money to even get a moving truck, because you don't make a whole lot of money at all.
You can't claim the home on your taxes.
No, you can't. So
they claim it as office space, and that's how they allow them to put their own phone systems in your house that they require you to have on 24/7, or they say we're going to fire you and kick you out of your home. Everything they always be threatening to us. But in those intercom systems, they would listen in on our conversation.
Yeah, they could also listen to your house from their room. In fact, we had a student, Colton Schrog, was it? Yeah, Colton Schrog told us that he learned how to dial into other phone systems so we could listen to what they were saying. And that we know a lot of staff who would go home and they would unplug their phones. They never had their phones plugged in because you'd have private conversations, and a week or two later, that conversation would be used against you.
And you'd be separate from your house, your spouse, and both of you are taxed separately. And
and I know exactly what you're saying. And to validate what you're saying all these years later about that, is I talked to a staff kid from the time when I was at Agape, and him and I are still in touch, whatever. And he had told me the same thing. He said that his family would get called into the Clements' office to be kind of chastised for something they said that was at a family meeting inside of their house, that no one in their family talked to anybody about. And next thing you know, their parents are being brought up to this offices to be talked about. This thing that they were saying behind closed doors in their house. And they're like, how are they listening to us? How do they know? They thought that the houses were bugged. They were under the assumption, but the intercom system makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. It's a totalitarian system they run. While we were on vacation, we're on Mackinac Island. We went to the Grand Mackinac Hotel, $35 a plate food. And I made a post on Facebook. This food is really good. I can't believe I'm getting some good food. It's so delicious. And when we got back from vacation, maybe I can deal with the stress again. Nope. Get called right into the Clements' office, yelled at, for disparaging Agape by saying Agape's food is terrible and Agape is a terrible place. And Agape was
All she
never
said was,
mentioned.
we ate 5-star. We had a 5-star buffet, man. This is great. Why are you
Right.
trashing Agape's food?
And at that point in time, I was like, I've got to block everybody from Agape. And still to this day, they're blocked. And I still have major reservations about putting like church members on my page because you were always getting in trouble for anything that you ever said to anybody. And one lady's like, I'm not on Facebook, but I have people who are on Facebook and they tell me everything. And I have spies who tell me, and then I tell the Clements. And so I'm like, woman.
Something I point out, a lot of students, they say, well, staff, why couldn't you just leave? And the answer is, we couldn't.
Yeah.
We couldn't just leave. There's nowhere to go. We had no home. We had no food. We had no money. We couldn't just hop up and leave. So, so that was the big issue. If it weren't for my in-laws, my mother and father-in-law, after we got fired, who said, okay, yeah, come on in. We had a spare room. Her brother just moved out, so they had a spare room where we could stay. And we would have been homeless, living in our car.
He was still in his room. I had to share with my sister.
That's what it was.
Yeah. So for 13 months, we didn't have a home, a place to put our pets of our own. But, people think, well, you're still making money off of, outside of your housing and your food. Well, you're not getting health insurance. They won't provide that.
You pay for it out of your own pocket for health insurance.
Yeah. And good health insurance will run you $1,000 a month. So then you're left with $400. But if you don't do good health insurance, well, you still have previous debt that you brought into the relationship because
Right.
it costs money, rings cost money,
College.
previous hospital bills
College,
cost
yeah.
money, everything. And
Yeah.
vehicles cost money.
Oh yeah, and with the vehicles, you got to have insurance and all that other stuff. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
The staff there were
it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
To piggyback on what you were talking about the intercom system, two things. Amanda said something about perverts. That's all I'm going to say about that. But in 1982, I was at the Roloff School, so I'm sure you know about Lester Roloff.
Yes, I didn't know you were at the school though.
I was at the school. I was never at the home. I never attended Anchor or Lighthouse. I was just at the school. I was able to go home at the end of the day, but I did see a lot of terrible stuff there. So, they follow the same pattern as Roloff did with the Rebecca home and the Lighthouse and all the other ones. But thankfully, they're starting to crumble.
Yes.
They are. They've actually. I had a lady send me the school that I was at in Corpus, in the city, because the farm is out in the outskirts of Corpus. It's now a mission now for bums and transients. So they got rid of. They're selling property like crazy over there because they can't keep up. They can't pay for it. Donors are scarce, so they're just having to sell property. And pretty soon, I would say probably a year, maybe 2, it's going to be completely gone.
Good.
Yeah, and Roloff's legacy. But the problem is, you got these idiots that keep up the legacy.
Yeah.
Agape
is really the flagship right now. It's the largest school that I know of. There could be one larger that is religiously in this IFB mindset and movement, to where they will use religion as a tool of abuse on people. So, and that's a whole nother story.
In their minds,
as a pastor, that offends me, but
Lester Roloff method of child rearing and disciplining teens and abuse is perfectly justified because how else are you going to raise a troubled teen? Well, you're going to get them therapists and psychiatrists, and you're going to get them actual professional help, number one.
Yeah.
But they praise his model, and the only reason why it sank is because religious persecution.
Roloff was hailed a hero.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And when the state came in to shut it down, all the people bragging, yeah, we were there in line, stopping the state from closing the school, and all these people that were Roloff's a hero. So you have these people, like you said, taking on the mantle.
And
Sure.
like our college, our church actually brought back the remains. The plane, Lester Roloff died in a plane, right?
Right. Plane crash.
They brought the plane crash back to our college and put it in their courtyard so that kids could worship the plane crash of this great man. And they kept it there for decades. And they only took it away when I was joining the school.
Yeah. The thing about Roloff is, I've said this in a few other podcasts, but I believe the guy had good intentions. I truly believe that he wanted to help troubled teens.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't go about it the right way, but the thought was there. Problem is, it got too big for him. He was busy going out on his plane, evangelizing, trying to get donors, going to these universities, Bob Jones, Jack Hiles, all these places, and he hired some really shady, creepy characters. The thing with Roloff was qualifications, like you were saying, James.
Yeah.
You know, what's your qualification? Well, I was an ex-heroin addict. I was an alcoholic. But I found Jesus. Oh, brother, come on in. Come on, we can
exactly.
use it. Or I'm an ex-child molester, or I'm an wife beater or something. But I found Jesus. That's all the qualification.
That was the qualification you needed.
Yeah. So they bring him in, and when Roloff's gone, stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you molested kids? What kind of kids? The little girls. Oh, okay, so we're going to hire you at this boys' home because they'll be perfectly fine, and we'll let you babysit them overnight. That's
and
fine.
the thing is, when it comes out, well, they're just lying. They're troubled teens. They're going to say anything to get out of here, you know?
Yeah, which is why I think it's so important that staff, I mean, we've been working at Speaking Out since 2015, and so many staff are so scared to speak out.
Yes.
They're scared. They're scared that they're going to get sued. When I was here, this story's come out, but when I was here working on staff at the church I'm currently the pastor of, and I was just the youth pastor here, the pastor of the church at Agape called, and I just happened to be the one to answer the phone, and he said, hey, this is, what's his name again? Grande. Hey, this is Grande. He's not there anymore, but this is Grande. I'm calling, is this the pastor? And I knew who Grande was. And I'm like, yes, because I didn't lie. I was a pastor of the church. Yes, this is the pastor. Yeah. And, I got to talk to you about James Clyden. So I was like, oh, okay. And he was talking to me the entire time when he thought he was talking to my boss. And he was telling me about how, he signed an anti-defamation form. He's not allowed to be talking how he's talking. And we have every right to sue him. And it's this stuff that he's saying. And so I said, well, let me call you back. So I hung up, called back. And I was like, oh, yeah, well, James said that he didn't sign an anti-defamation form. So he doesn't know what you're talking about. And I had a conversation with him where he threatened me. So I'm no doubt other staff have been called and threatened. And maybe even their bosses called. I mean, you have my old boss calling my new boss. That's illegal, by the way. They're not supposed to do that.
Yes.
And so what other staff has that happened to where they've been forced to be silent under pain of losing their job? Right. Under pain of bad publicity because your guy's getting sued for defamation and all this stuff. So it's ridiculous. It's all about control. So even when you leave the school, it's about control. Can they control you and keep you quiet? I know a staff mom who was offered money to keep quiet by Agape.
Man, it's crazy because they've mastered at Agape. They mastered the fear to control the children.
Yeah,
it's interesting to hear that they're using that same type of fear to control the staff. Even long after they leave Agape.
Sure.
Like that is, I wasn't expecting you to talk about that or even mention that.
Most people don't.
And paying money to keep quiet. That's bribery.
Yes.
That's illegal. That's illegal.
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
Even after they let my husband go, we had no money. They promised him the next 3 paychecks. We knew the second we left campus, those checks weren't going to come. So we stayed the exact amount of time to get those next 3 paychecks. Because they knew they weren't letting him go.
That was the only way we were going to move. That was the only way we were going to be able to get out.
And you can't tell a guy, we don't want you to come back, but thank you because you're the only guy who made these bus stop kids actually do their work. And you're the best math teacher we have, and nobody understands math like you. And no one can help the boys besides you. So you don't tell them these things and then say, but I don't want to see you here again. So, but even in that time, like the Clementsons will drive past our house and sit in our driveway and stare at, and I would be hiding behind my couch, crying, calling my husband to, I think he was doing errands in town, grabbing some Dollar General, packing stuff. And I'm freaking out, having a panic attack because these Clemensons are staring into my big bay window, my front window, freaking out. When at night you'd have staff members walk past our house and look in our windows because they wanted to make sure we weren't fraternizing with other people.
Yeah, we had a staff. We had a staff who ended up leaving with us named John Sifferman. I'm allowed to give his name, John Sifferman, and we were. He was one of our best friends. He's one of my best friends to this day. I just played Xbox with him 2 nights ago. But he would come to our house after we were fired. They told him that we they didn't want him hanging out with us. They told him this because we are trying to get him to sleep with us and have a threesome.
Wait, they said this?
They said this, and then after we left, we were told by staff. We were just told this a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago, that they told some staff that when we got fired, and because we were having a threesome with John. And that was completely ridiculous. If we would have known about this years ago, we would have filed a defamation suit. But it's too late for that now. We just found out about it.
It doesn't make sense because we'd always have John Zimmerman and then
Mike Smith.
Yeah, I didn't know if his name was loud. Anyhow, but they were always at our house. But Mike Smith was always over way more than John Zimmerman because he's more comfortable and John's kind of like reserved.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait, you accused the wrong. I don't get it. And to accuse us of something like that when they on 3 separate occasions told us you need to stop being so romantic in public. You're just hugging too much. You're holding hands and kissing in church. That's not appropriate. Like you need to, and I'd be like snuggled like this, or next to him, and we'd be kissing in the dining hall. And they didn't like it, so 3 separate times.
But that was their go-to. That was their go-to thing.
They accused 5 separate people.
5 different people of the same thing throughout while we were there as well too. So there's no reason to doubt they would say the same thing about us.
But
so 5 different staff families.
That way, staff could not. That way, the staff that were there were told they could not talk to us or fraternize with us because we were in sin. So we would be a bad influence on them. So that way, we're leaving. We have all this stuff. You got to get out of here. This place is bad. We couldn't sway anybody else, which we ended up doing. John Zimmerman ended up leaving with us after they told him you can't hang out with anymore. He said, "Okay, here's my 2 weeks notice. I'm done." And then he left with us.
But the thing for someone to of all the lies to think of you guys, it could be your drug dealers, they could be whatever. The idea of that you're having a threesome, right, and sexually active with other partners and doing that idea had to be in someone's head already. So, to me, that's a pretty corrupt person that already has those ideas and thoughts in their mind to put that story together and be like, oh, they're in sin. And well, why are they in sin? Well, and this is what they make up. It's like
acting out their own fantasies. I mean, they must have mistaken you for Jareth and Brian. I think
must have.
It must have been. It must have been.
That family has a lot of like sex hang-ups, and was told to me that the accuser revealed to this other person on staff that he and his wife watch porn to get it up in the bedroom so that they can, and we're like, so that's happening and you're accusing innocent people, even siblings in the same home. You can't do that because you're going to have orgies and you're going to ruin your.
They're accusing siblings of that. I can't give their names because of privacy concerns. But
at least 5 that we know while we were there in those 2.5 years, at least 5.
Wow.
I just don't understand.
All 5 were kind of not in the inner circle, so it's how they torture and hurt the outer circle to try to get you to conform until their extremism and to be silent and just go with everything and not question and literally be mindless, brainless servants. So they were all in the outer circle, and consequently, all these 5 eventually, in their own time periods, left Agape. But that's how they attack you. They attack everything close to you. You can't be safe in your own home. They watch you even on your time off. Like you can't go to restaurants and comment about the food because then you're attacking them. Even on your days off, if you have a Sunday off and you're out of town, that you have to bring back a bulletin to prove you were in church somewhere. And then if they don't like the church you went to, they'll have a chit chat with you. Like,
I don't get
control.
it because
super big on control.
Right, but you hear these stories about these people that know the Clemensons and know their family and know stuff, and like stories of Brian being an alcoholic and drinking and all this other. These people, like, they're living this kind of lifestyle. I remember being at Agape as a student, or I think I was actually maybe a staff at the time, and a man was talking about how they had gone to the lake as a family and were riding jet skis. And I was like, I remember like looking, I was like, how do you ride a jet ski with a dress on? She's like, oh, I wasn't wearing a dress. I was in a bathing suit, and I was just like mortified. I'm like, what do you mean you're in a bathing suit? That's a sin. That's not. But then they live this lifestyle, but then they force everyone else to live to these standards and make up. It's just
do as I say, not as I do. That's how it goes.
I leave campus and they would have these mandatory ladies meetings for staff wives. You had to go there. They'd fire your husband and kick you out of your home because that's always what they would threaten with.
They always threaten the wives with, we're going to fire your husband if you don't.
They would even say, the reason why we're having tough month financially. I'm like, what? You're charging $3,250 per student.
Right.
You have 100 students. How are you having a rough month financially? Like, and we may not be able to pay your husbands this month. And the reason why is because the ladies in this room, that is why, because the attitude in this room is not, And then once I was like, I'm not going to this ladies meeting because all she does is humiliate us and yell at us and gossip and share stupid stuff that she thinks is helpful, but it's not helpful. And it doesn't help me at all. It always puts me in a bad spirit. Like, even if it's your husband's day off, you're forced. So I went with a couple friends. One's a staff wife, one was just a friend. And we were swimming at the lake, and we got in trouble for swimming at the lake. We're like, but your own family gets away with murder.
Yeah.
I mean, next to murder, but whatever.
And molestation.
Right. Yeah.
I've heard even the staff wives have been sleeping with the students.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
She, The
famous bearded lady.
Well, she has, there was one staff member that sent his genitalia pics to girls from, don't show it, please.
I'm just saying, I have his dick pic in my phone.
And
he'd send it to the girls.
He sent it to the girls, and the girls said, hey, this staff member has sent these images to us. This is the proof.
I was like, what are you talking about? And I'm typing this, all of a sudden it pops up. I'm like, James, is that what I think it is? I don't want to see it. I'm just typing it underneath it. Very inappropriate.
Multiple, not just one.
You can see the profile picture in it, and he's sending it to multiple.
That's okay. From what I've heard, it's like dealing with a baby carrot, but we'll leave it there. But we know,
not be wrong.
We know exactly. I know exactly who you're talking about. Colton Schrag was talking about it. Yes.
Okay. Well,
exactly. It was a Refuge of Faith girls before it was Refuge of Grace. Before it was Wings of Faith.
Because when they got persecuted, then they'd have to change their name and try to get away the press. But we live in the 21st century. You can't hide away from press all day.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask, James, being a pastor, all this stuff that you witnessed and saw and experienced there, did that shake your faith at all? To say, if this is the way Christians are?
I did the unpardonable sin. I started studying.
You slept with my sister?
No.
Oh.
I did the unpardonable sin in IFB circles. I started studying Bible translations and Bible history, and what I started doing is studying stuff outside the IFB circle. And I found out that there are Christian groups who actually love people and don't try to control via love. They control via fear. They control via love, because the Bible says, I just preached on it this morning, perfect love casteth out fear. And what I discovered while being at Agape is so many Christians, Agape is just one of the pinnacles, and one of them are using an unhealthy fear of God to control people. When in reality, God doesn't want us scared of him. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that. The fear of the Lord just means you respect him for who he is. But so many people, they try to make you think, oh, if you do this, then God's going to punish you. Then God's going to do this. God's not like that. He's there knowing that when we mess up, come back. I love you. Even amidst your mistakes, I still love you. But they're teaching that God may kill you if you do ... So they're teaching an unhealthy view of God. So being there, I will say it opened my eyes to what wrong Christianity is. An unhealthy fear of God based upon control, upon manipulation of Scripture. And of course, if you've heard any sermons from that place, you'll know it's all manipulation. It's all bad preaching. There's very rarely, I remember the only time I heard a good sermon was when Kazak, it was his last sermon, and he left school.
Roasted.
He ripped the place to shreds from the pulpit. And
Really?
This is great. And he was talking about a proper fear of God, talking about proper love, talking about treating people with dignity. The very next sermon, the very next one, I don't remember who preached it, but someone got up and completely trashed everything that he said.
Yes. And it was,
wow.
And it's like, he was such a dry preacher too, not to attack the man, but it seemed like he was hands tied. He was in Sermon on the Mount for the entire time you were there for 2 years, verse by verse, like so slow, just like He'd get up and do his job. But that sermon, it's like, where was this side of him this entire time we were here? Has he kept all of this silent?
If you preached about this, like this entire time, there wouldn't be these issues, I bet.
But they said, and Frank Burton got up and he says, the whole world is going to hell in a handbasket because they're not doing the things that we're doing here. We're the ones doing right. And if they're not doing it this way,
and that's
then
an
we're
IFB
going
tactic,
to hell in a handbasket. So it's like, if I don't hate on kids and hide child abuse and bully staff and create different entities to hide all my money and mistreat people horribly, if I don't do things your way and that's the way they do it here, then I'm going to hell. Well, I don't want to go to your heaven.
I don't want to be there with you guys then.
Like, I challenged my faith. I was almost an atheist while we were there. I just was so sick of it. And I was like, is there a God? And I started studying other religions. Judaism, I started Mormonism, I studied Islam, and I was just really struggling. And then I turned the radio on. I'm like, I recognize that song. And this is how I moved from the IFB mindset out to Christ. Yeah. Is I heard a song, I recognize the song, but that's bad music. It's rock music. But I'm like, I love this song. They sing it at college.
Sure.
Which is, if this is bad music, then why would they change it? I'm like, I'll listen to it even though I don't like the drums. It's wickedness. But it helped me in college. Maybe it'll help me now. And then the next song's like that. Then the next song. I'm like, and then I found myself listening to this CCM, Christian Contemporary Music station. And then once we were on vacation and somebody was dragging her little feet to get out of bed, and we ran to McDonald's. I'm like, I need to eat first. And we ate, and I was like, let's eat in McDonald's and let's not eat in the car. So we were really late because I didn't want to go to church. I was sick of church, but we needed our bulletin. So then it's like, we're too late to make it to the one church that's already been going on. Okay, let's just Google another church. We found another church.
What was it called again? Woodland Hills.
Woodland Hills, maybe?
Woodland Hills
it was located at an abandoned theme park. We get there, we park, and we're like, it's either this service or there's no service because we missed all the IFB services that started a little early. And so we get out. We know it's a Christian church. As soon as we get outside, I'm by the trunk. I remember, we have to leave because it was blaring CCM. It was rock music. This is rock music. The entire time I'm like, oh my goodness. Walking in, and Christian's like, no, we have to go. We got to get a bulletin. We'll be done. And we walk in, and there's guys in T-shirts, girls in jeans, guys in jeans, no suits and ties, T-shirts with their logo on it.
Wicked.
And there's
terrible.
A coffee station and lemonade that you can bring into church, and people are smiling.
Smiling in church.
Not fake smiles. That is, let's see who can race to get the gossip first at Agape and other churches, but like true, genuine joy. And then we go in, and it's black. The platform is black, and they've got these weird lights, and they got the drums, and it's just, I'm like,
are you sure this wasn't the Church of Satan? I'm sure.
I know.
But I would say that being at that church was a tipping point from us because we heard a message that was based upon the Bible.
Yes.
What the Bible said, not an opinion. We saw people smiling, people shaking hands, and then an old couple. I couldn't point them out to you for the life of me. I couldn't give you their names or anything. They came up to us after church and they said, oh, you guys are so cute. And they talked to us. And we've been here for years. This church is doing amazing, man. We've been here for years. And to see how true Christians acted, it was the tipping point for me. I was getting ready to get to that story eventually.
And then he did. And then at the end, he gave the Romans Road. It wasn't anything to do with his message at all. But he was just like, you're going to invite you. It's not like an IFB altar call where they want you to bow at the feet of the pastor, but like he did like an altar call where you can do it from your seat or you can go forward however you want. We're going to worship, sing the song. Here's the Romans Road, and he gave the plan of salvation.
We were told that didn't happen.
I was
at
gobsmacked.
churches like that, they didn't care about salvation.
Right.
I was gobsmacked. I was like, everything was so professional. They even had a lady who volunteered in the bathroom to hand us paper towels. I was just like, everything was how church was supposed to be. It was love. It was truth in the book.
And like you said,
on vacation with there.
And like you said, James, the typical IFB sermon, fire and brimstone, you're going to hell, you're a wicked sinner. You know, if you're not part of this church or if you don't believe what we say, then you're going straight to hell. That's the typical IBF.
Exactly. It's all, like I was talking about earlier, it's all to control with fear.
Yes.
And that's how they can build their churches, because people are so scared that if they leave, then they're not really saved.
And not to say that there are not any genuine people there, as far as people that attend the church. I've met some people in the IBF that are very nice, that are very genuine,
Of course.
but not a lot of them. Most
No,
of
not a
them
lot.
are just sycophants, and they basically worship the pastor. I mean, when you think about it,
Exactly what it is. It's all pastor worship.
Yeah.
It's all pastor
And
worship.
you have some good, genuine pastors, but especially in the
are
IFB
some.
movement where they're not held accountable to any kind of high authority, where the pastor is basically God in that church. It's a denomination of isolationists.
Yes.
Right.
And there's not like you're going to answer for the denomination if you are squirreling funds away for your vacation.
But if you
are deceiving, if you're sleeping with people in the congregation, if you're hurting people, there's no kind of accountability.
But if you go, if you step out of line, they say that you're independent churches in the IFB, but if you step out of line, other pastors will blast you from the pulpits and blast it all over social media.
Oh, sure.
So you're an autonomous church loosely.
right.
To still try to control. It's all based upon control. We had this is really off topic, but we did in our town a Christmas movie like runoff to where our whole town took place in this vote on our church's Facebook page. What's the best Christmas movie? It ended up getting down between Die Hard and It's a Wonderful Life for the all-time best Christmas movie. I'm just praising God that It's a Wonderful Life one. I didn't want to get in front of my church and say, guess what? We get a crown Die Hard. Yeah, great movie. Not the best Christmas movie in the world, but I had a church like in Nevada or Montana or whatever that put us on blast because we were worshiping Hollywood. I messaged the pastor and I said, listen, I really don't care what some church in Nevada thinks about us. We're reaching Dundalk. You guys can care about your own little thing over there. You want to blast us? That's fine. I care about what my town thinks about me.
Well, these IFB churches,
He did, and then he wound up another guy attacked him viciously and wouldn't listen to anything, then took him off the channel, the feed and everything. Consequently went to work at Agape. So like, oh, you can have it if that's your cup of tea.
and not a lot of churches, come together. Basically, they each have their own way of teaching. Like I said before, James or Griffey. If you want to know what's wrong with the First Baptist Church, you go to the Second Baptist Church, and they're going to tell you exactly what's wrong with them.
Yeah.
What they're doing wrong, and the teachings are off or whatever. But yeah, and the thing is, everybody thought, a little sidetrack here. Everybody thought that Roloff, like you said, was this great man, but nobody knew that he had a child out of wedlock.
I did not know that.
Well, you do now.
I did not know that. Wow.
Yes.
A pastor was hiding a second life?
Yes. Yes.
Shocking.
Exactly.
So sad.
Exactly.
But
Creepy. Creepy people, man. They're creepy.
like when I was at Agape as a staff member after I graduated, I was there for a year. I remember I know, right? It was the same thing. I was afraid to go out into the real world. I was afraid. I didn't have a driver's license. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook. I didn't know anything about living life. So I stayed there. And I remember I really got into the Bible, really got into studying it. I had my concordance. I had my 1828 dictionary. Like I really was learning about the Bible, right? Really getting, and in the Bible, I started like reading it for what it was saying. And it was talking about this God of love, right? And
No, okay, we want to make sure he had pants on.
Oh, no, for sure.
We're potty training, and sometimes when he leaves the bathroom, we heard the door.
I have a little thing in the editing software that can blur it out.
Yeah.
Blowing out baby in the background.
But and I remember I started like teaching the kids and doing Bible studies with them and like teaching them and like even preaching and talking about this God of love and God loves us and stuff. And they actually pulled me aside and they said, you can't be teaching that here. I'm like, but that's what the Bible says. And like, no, you can't be teaching that here. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, and that's what really kind of drew me from wanting to leave Agape was they wanted me to teach the kids fear. So
Were they paying you?
Yeah, I would get half a day off a week, and I think I was getting $150 a month. And I was living in the dorms with the boys, so we're working 24/7, right? Mind you, like having to watch the kids all the time with 4 hours off a week, and I believe it was $150 a month is what I was getting paid. Oh, but they justified it by
start selling off properties because the Clementsons are like dragons hoarding all the money in their multiple different trusts and nonprofit entities at their campus, and there are multiple properties outside of just Stockton. So, Kathy asked us why. She's like, hey, and she asked us all individually, like, you want a tanning bed? I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't tan. Like, well, I have some people here who want to tan, and maybe they wouldn't go out, and maybe they wouldn't go to salons if I had a tanning bed here. Something about buying a tanning bed and putting it in one of the other rooms in the school. You know, the boys don't need to use it. I'm like, everything at the school is supposed to be for these students.
Yeah.
Not for staff wives to be living a life of luxury with their own tanning salons.
Yeah. And going back to Kazak, you guys mentioned how he left. I don't know any details behind any of this stuff. I just know that after doing some digging, like there's a property, I believe it was in Texas, that's registered like to him as an owner, but it's like a house property, and then also it's like the Clementsons are like co-signers on that property. So it's like there's like I agree. There's all these weird shady stuff that's going on. There's these different businesses. If you look at their property and how many businesses are registered to that address in Missouri, it's like all these different businesses from a transmission business. I'm sorry?
It's like over 20.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's like
they got their fingers
fishy.
in a lot of pies. Yeah.
Yeah. Man. So when you guys were there, I'm curious as well, because abuse is a big thing, right? Like all the stuff that's going on right now. Did you ever witness that, or did they try to keep it away from you guys, being that maybe you guys weren't on board with everything they were doing there? Did they try to hide any of that stuff from you?
No, I worked with the bad of the bad students, what they would say, in the school side of things. Of course, Sandoval, you probably heard enough about Julio, a lot about him. I don't need to go into him at all. He worked with them in the Browntown area. I worked with him in the school. My whole mindset, of course, was I was not going to do the same punishments that they were going to do. Of course, I gave out push-ups sometimes, but there was a time where it was 8 months to a year. I don't remember exactly how long. I just said I'm not going to give out push-ups anymore, unless a kid walked up and said, "Hey, give me push-ups. I'm trying to get a certain amount of sets in. Can you give me some push-ups?" Or I do push-ups. Yeah. That's what I did.
Right.
But I wasn't going to give out push-ups, and I didn't for a long time. I didn't give out write-ups for a long time because I thought I don't want these kids to listen to me out of fear. I want them to listen to me because they respect me for who I am, and I want them to love me, and they'll listen to what I say because they love me. And lo and behold, it happened. I didn't have any issues with students at all. I didn't have students that wanted to beat me up or hurt me or kill me. And a lot of students right now, you've probably talked to some. I know you've talked to some who even mentioned my name on the podcast. Who said, "Oh yeah, I had no issue with James. He did a great. He was a big help." Well, because I wasn't going to make these kids fear me. Let's get the respect involved. But we did have a meeting toward the end of my time there, to where Clements said, "Hey, we need to have. Everyone needs to give out more push-ups, more push-ups." And I knew who it was all referring to. It was an all-staff member. I'm not giving out push-ups. I'm not giving out write-ups. It was me. And I just thought, no, I'm not going to do it, because what I'm doing right now is working. You guys have staff kids that want to kill you. I don't. I'll keep doing what I'm doing because I'm not having discipline issues. And I'm thinking, who's the one you put in the intake room to calm kids down? Me. Why? Because I'm calming these kids down.
Yeah.
I remember one time I had a student in there. This kid went nuts, and he started beating up another kid in the intake room. If there was another staff member in there, the staff member probably was one who would have got beat up. I never got hit. I know a whole bunch of staff that got hit. I never got hit. Why? Because I was worried about getting these kids to respect. But anyways, yeah, they try to get us to conform and me to conform to some abusive methods, and I wouldn't do it. We did get trained in this thing called nonviolent crisis intervention, which I was for. Okay, it was good. It was a state licensed thing. They use it in public schools. They use it in juvenile detention centers, and we got licensed in it. And it's all about restraining a kid nonviolently. We all got trained in it. Problem is, I think it was used once or twice. Maybe. Yeah. Everyone went back to the old JMTC restraints.
They certified, but again, they don't do any of the methods.
So they'll say, "Oh yeah, we're certified in this kind of restraint." Right. Okay, yeah, you're certified.
Yeah.
Do you do it? No.
Right. Is that because I remember when I was there on staff, they brought in this kind of restraint, and Brian Clements taught us how to do this type of restraint. He went and learned it and brought it back. Is it like where the kid's squaring off with you and he's a threat? You kind of spin him around, grab him, and then bring him to the ground, or
if you're one student, if you're one staff, if you're two, you have him by two. You have him by two arms.
Yeah,
like that. It was all about So they did the same. I didn't even know they did that back when you were there.
Yeah, they didn't do that initially, but when before that it was just punching and hitting kids, right, and throwing them around. But then when they brought this in, but yeah, same thing. Like or the staff would abuse it. Like it'd be this like 200 something pound man throwing this kid around and laying on top of him. The kid's just screaming. But you know, they're doing it right. You know, but that's
can you blame the kid?
I would no, I would be screaming too. I witnessed them punish the whole student body because they said one kid talked out this morning they weren't supposed to, so you all lose your free time, and that was on a Saturday.
I would have ran.
Oh my gosh!
That's good. And I was like, I'm sitting there, I'm like, I'm thinking that's not. Well, Geneva can't punish a whole group of people because of one person's sin. But I'm like, wait, you're out of control as a staff member. You are very moody. You're unstable. I consider you, and you're not having a good morning already. I've been seeing that. And so you're literally taking everything out because one student made you mad. So all of them lose their freedom. And it was favoritism. It really was. I was grading with Mrs. Burton in the boys' room. That was my assigned task because if I didn't work there, they were going to fire my husband. They made me volunteer.
All women were required to work on staff and get paid. Well, they get paid in their husband's name, $136. There are actually some people,
$132 and some odd cents.
Some investigative reporters that we're talking with have attributed it to labor trafficking.
Yeah, human trafficking. Because human trafficking for sex, for child sex, for labor, and that was what it was. Because they'd even send us into town, and then the next week, Kathy's like, "Oh, I love sending y'all there because I get a nice check."
So she gets paid for the work that the staff ladies do, and the staff ladies don't get nothing.
And the volunteers and the boys, because the boys were volunteering too, and she got paid from our labor, and that's labor trafficking.
Wait. You're saying that because I remember being a student, and they would send us off-campus work crews to go buck hay or clean up someone's farm or do stuff like that. And we were told it was just us being, volunteering as a, community service and doing good as good Christians should be doing. You're telling me that they sometimes would get paid?
Yes.
Clements said, I love sending volunteers to work because I get a nice check.
There have been some boys who have witnessed envelopes being given or money being given from the people to a staff.
Oh, that really upsets me, like emotionally upsets me like that.
Labor trafficking.
And if you ever failed a test, well, back to that testing, I graded 2 tests the exact same pace. 1 day apart each. They missed the exact same question on both their tests. The first day, let him pass. That's fine. He's a good kid. Second day, no. What'd you do? What are you passing? Because she would go through all the stuff I graded, and then she would fail students even if I passed them. Or she would pass students even if I failed them. She would find grades, and that's how they did it. If they felt like a kid should be there longer, they would pass them. If not, they would fail them. But I'm like, why? She's like, well, that kid's bad. That kid's bad. He just doesn't. And it like, yes, Judy, just don't argue with me. And she started yelling. And like, but what they would say is, we don't want any kids to leave because we lose money.
Yeah, and essentially because I remember you wanted to be in favor with the staff when you were there. If you're in favor with the staff, they would be easier on you. But also in school, you'd pass more tests. It'd be like, oh, you know what, you failed this test, but I'm going to give you a passing grade because the staff liked you. So you wanted to be in favor with them. If you weren't, they were having you like flunk. They're setting you back. Like I remember there were kids that were getting ready to graduate, and they were giving them like years back, like giving them like 6th grade work just to keep them there.
No kid. Here's what ma'am said: no kid is ever ready to leave. No kid's ever ready to leave because if a kid leaves, they lose money. So they'll tell parents, "Oh, for a year." But then when that year's over, oh, they're not ready to leave yet. You need to keep them here longer. Which is why so many kids stay for over a year because their parents are told, oh no, they still have work. They need to get fixed. So no kid is ever ready to leave.
Yeah. Kathy Clements, one kid was apparently supposed to come. She's like, where are they? And I'm like, what's going on? If they don't make it here, I lose $5,000. She was very upset. Like somebody, I don't know if they missed their flight or if they're on the way and they had a little delay. She's like, I can't stand when we lose any kids because I lose a lot of money. That's like $5,000 a month that I lose.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
it's all about the money.
It's about the money. It's
all about the money.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man.
And of course, you have like Brian and Julio, just sadists. They're not.
I don't know Brian at all. I don't know him at all.
My father said he was there. And
I was there during the brief time that he wasn't. That's when I was there.
He said Brian was psychotic. He was an anger crazy. He would just go off on kids, and he was out of control, violent.
They take absolute pleasure in hurting these kids.
Julio,
yeah,
no doubt. But Julio is a narcissist in my mind. I mean, he paints himself as every staff member's best friend. So you're a staff member there. You think, oh, this guy's my best friend. Like, he'll do stuff for you. But then that my whole mindset is if you like him so much, he's a very likable personality. Right. If you're not a student, very likable personality. So my whole thinking, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but my whole thinking is he's trying to get all staff to like him so much that when he does something, no one's going to call him out on it. But of course, he's a big guy as well. And
he's short, but he's
short. He's a strong guy MMA fighter. I mean, and he could beat me up, no problem. I'll be honest. He could take me out.
Sure,
and,
right.
He told me, he's like, you need to have kids. That way it balances your emotions more. I'm like,
wait,
she was
what?
questioning too much, so she needed to have kids so it balanced her emotions.
I'm like, so I am pointing out something is illegal. At the time, I was pointing out that there was something illegal. I was pointing out, and there were so many things. So I was pointing, and he's like, you need to do that. I'm like, how is my emotions going to change what is wrong here? Like, there would be like food on the top shelf, raw meat dripping down into a pool of blood 2 feet wide. And that's illegal. It has to be on the bottom shelves, and raw meat, pork can't be right next to raw chicken. You can't do that. And it can't be on the shelf with like other produce and stuff. It has to be at the very bottom. And they're like, what do you want me to do about it?
Food inspectors aren't allowed in.
What do you want me to do about it?
Right. Yeah. Right.
All the boys take care of it. The boys fix all my problems. What do you want me to do about it?
Well, and I have no kids of my own, but I've a pregnant woman is more, like your hormones and everything that you're going through, all stuff. Like, he's saying, go have kids. Like, this is gonna level you out or like ground you or whatever like that. And also, who would say that to another man's wife? Like, I don't know. Exactly. I would even now.
Graves told me one time. This is closely before he left. I think he was trying to get me to see if he could save me or something. I don't know. But he brought me outside one time. We were standing in front of the school, and he said, "You know what, James? You need to get your wife under control." And I said, "Okay, all right. Where are you going with this?" And he said, "Well, if your house is a mess when you get home, we'll open the door, turn around, and leave, and don't call. Let her call you, and be like." And when she said, "Where are you?" I'll come home when the house is clean and the house smells like good cooked dinner. And I said, "You're a nut."
Wow.
I said, "I would never talk to my wife like that."
Hold on, let me do it for him. Putting me under your thumb.
That's what he wanted me to do.
Putting me under your thumb.
But of course, I could get into a whole biblical scholarly lesson on true biblical marriage.
Well, that's
right.
That's the other IFB mindset right there. The women are submissive to the man.
They conveniently ignore, this is just a pet peeve of mine, they conveniently ignore the verse that says, submit yourselves one to another. Then go to the next verse that says, wives, submit to your husbands. And then they ignore, husbands, love your wife like Christ loved the church. Yeah. They ignore that part.
Right.
But just because there's a command doesn't exclude the other one. Just because a man is commanded to love doesn't mean a woman doesn't have to. And just because a woman is commanded to submit doesn't mean the husband doesn't have to.
Right.
It's just God knows which one's weaker in both genders. So he says, hey, focus on this, wife. Hey, husband, focus on this. But submit yourself one to another like the verse says. Okay, that was my little pet peeve, little rant.
The thing is, there's another section of the Baptist religion. They're called historic Baptists. You ever heard of them? James?
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you talking about people with Trail of Blood?
No.
Are you talking about the Trail of Blood book type mindset?
No. They're called historic Baptists. They're like the IFB, but worse.
Really?
Yes.
You mean the culottes down to the ankles, not just
yes. There's a pastor who goes
who never cut their hair.
There's a pastor by the name of Jason Cooley. You ever heard of him?
I've heard that name.
Yes. He's he calls himself a historic Baptist. And just like you were saying about the wives being submissive and everything, he gave this sermon. And he said, wives be submissive to your husbands, but of course husbands also need to be submissive. And then he looks at the crowd and says, so are you saying that he could just take it? And he goes, yeah, you can take it. In other words, yeah, you can just, if your wife doesn't want it, just take it. Of course, he took that sermon down really fast.
Of course.
But not until I recorded it.
Was that the video that's been going around on Facebook recently? Was that the same guy? There's a new video, different guy?
Yeah.
Okay, different guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if he's attributed to the new IFB with Steven Anderson at all.
Steven Anderson, yes, he's a weirdo.
Yeah,
he wants to kill all the gays and all that. Yeah.
That's terrible.
That guy's a nut.
That is so not love.
Yeah,
you think Christ wasn't surrounded by gay people? You think gay people
Right.
did not, LGBTQ people did not
Yeah.
exist in Christ's time?
No, Christ would not be allowed in their church.
Well, Jason
Yeah, right.
Cooley and Stephen
Oh,
Anderson.
He loves them.
Jason Cooley and Stephen Anderson are both historic Baptists, but they hate each other. They hate each other.
Really?
Oh yeah.
They hate each other? I'm going to have to look into that.
Look into Jason Cooley. He goes by. He's got a YouTube channel. It's called OPBC Online, Old Paths Baptist Church. But it's
OPBC Online. I'm looking
Yeah.
that
Whenever I
up.
see old paths, I'm just like, oh no.
Old Paths
I remember
Baptist. Yep.
sermons when I was young.
Yeah.
That
He's
verse is taken so much out of context.
I
Oh
remember
my
racist
goodness.
sermons, how you shouldn't mix with other people. I'm like, what? And as a young girl, I knew this was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like one man, I thought this was wrong. He says, before I get up out of bed, my wife is already up. She's showered. She's ready for the day. All of her makeup is on. I never see her without makeup. She's completely ready before I'm ready.
Sounds like a good
She's
super
making
marriage
breakfast.
tip.
Okay, for your
Sounds like a
second
super
wife,
marriage
'cause
Yes.
your
I'm looking
ex
forward to
by
seeing
then.
that.
But yeah, like at Agape, one lady, I don't want to give her name because she's not here. But she said that when she got pregnant to a student turned staff member, and they got married. And then she got pregnant. They're like, "Oh, you need to stay home, take care of your body. You're growing a baby." So she was working in the staff or in the upper offices, making a very little paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Then after she had the baby, like, "Oh, you need to come back to work." And she's like, "No, I'm kind of just enjoying my baby, and I kind of want to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom." Like, no, you'll feel much better once you come back to work. Come back to work on this date, and you'll feel better. And so she did, and her checks disappeared. She's like, "I didn't get my paycheck."
Money gone.
And they're like, "Well, you don't need your paychecks anymore because you have a husband now." She did her same exact job, same hours. They wouldn't let her be a stay-at-home wife and mom like she wanted to be, even after
Right.
persuaded her that though she needed to be, and they wanted her to volunteer for them.
So you get paid before you get married. Don't get paid afterwards. Labor trafficking.
Right. That's so crazy. I'm
I
excited.
could not volunteer
Oh my
outside my
gosh.
home for anybody.
Really?
I could not volunteer. And when I asked, they said, no, because you'll be tempted to see that the grass is greener on the other side,
Which it
and
is.
you'll leave your husband, and you'll tear apart your marriage, and your husband
that
is
grass.
broken-hearted. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, for
What is
volunteering?
it? What is it with these IBF people? It always boils down to sex. What is
does.
it with these
It
people?
does.
Yes.
It does.
Even
Yeah.
cartoons, they demonize cartoons, saying that there's penises in cartoons, and there's not. They're so addicted.
Yeah.
And
Addicted.
that's a whole other conversation that we could have in regards to why sex is such a big issue, why sex scandals are so big in the IFB movement.
Right.
There's so much preaching about, women, you're looking at them the wrong way. And in reality, regular men don't think that way, as perverted as some IFB mindsets are, because all they do is paint women as sex objects. And in the world nowadays, especially nowadays, women aren't seen like that. Of course, there's still other perverts out there, don't get me wrong, but you don't see a woman and automatically think, oh, she's wearing pants. Oh my goodness. I'm turned on because she's wearing pants. That doesn't happen.
I used to
Yeah.
think that a girl with their skirt above their knee, showing their knee, they were a whore. They were a slut. They wanted to steal other people's husbands and other boys, and they wanted to sleep with all the men. They didn't want to settle down. They were wicked. That was so horrible. That was my mentality. That's how I grew up.
Judgmental, fear-based attitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing, like learning all that as a student, or being in there at Agape and them teaching this and embedding that in your head, and then besides the fact that they keep you trapped there with the pay and everything else, also they make you so afraid of the real world, because all this stuff, you can't control what people wear, what they say, what music they're listening to out in the real world. They get you so afraid of the real world as well that you're gonna cheat on your husband if you go out and get a normal job. You're gonna and they paint this terrible picture in your head, like, I don't want to cheat on my husband, so I better not leave this place. I better not do this. And it's like, it is brainwashing to a whole nother level. It's crazy.
They would call moms, not by name, but they would say them in pants that they're sluts and that they're loose women, Proverbs 7 women, and that's why their boy is at Agape, because their mom wears pants and is rebellious at heart, and that's why their boy has problems, because she wasn't submissive and she wasn't
All fear-based control mechanisms.
Yeah.
Like, we had some students come to us, multiple students, and say, I never wanted to get married. After living here at Agape and seeing everybody around, I never want to get married, except I saw you and your wife, And if I can have a marriage like yours, that's what I want. If not, I don't want it. And we're like, oh, thank you. That's flattering.
Yeah.
But there's misery there.
It was scary seeing like the staff family, like, and seeing the wife, just seeing how they were. Typically, the wife was this really reserved, quiet. You, as a student, you almost never would hear the wife speaking at all. They would just come in, eat dinner with the family, be quiet, and walk out. Like never like speak. And so that was kind of creepy from a student's perspective. So hearing you like being vocal, like props to you.
Yeah, I was vocal there too, and that's why I kind of hated Kathy. Sorry, I'm not going to call her by her title that she forces on people. Her name is Kathy. Kathy. A rebel. Anyhow, yeah, she would get jealous and possessive and territorial, like these were her boys, and we couldn't get close to her boys. And I remember another lady, Patty Hartman, and she's about the same age as ma'am too. She's just a nice version. She's a wonderful lady. And she's like, what about some of these boys? Like, I feel like I just heard for them so much. Their families are gone from them. They never get visits or phone calls. And can I give them a hug? And ma'am's like, no touching, no contact. And yet ma'am's giving hugs to all her favorites. And she's being extra friendly, extra chummy. And ladies would get called in. Like, if you were in trouble, they'd be punishing the students. And then they'd be punishing the staff wives. So you were just afraid to do that. And then there's the other double side of that, is that they would convince you and the staff daughters that the boys, all of them are thinking about how they can rape you.
Well, when you have a bunch of
boys here are rapists.
Knowing the teenage mindset, you know how we were when we were teens.
Yeah.
What did we think about girls? So when you sit them in a school or any type of home for years with no contact with any females, what do you think that's going to do? What do you think they're going to think about? I mean, they're not going to think about rape, but I'm saying they're going to be looking at some of these staff wives and going, "Oh,
you're right.
Give me 10 minutes with her," you know.
Yep, and that happened a couple times with some staff wives. But
some staff wives were into it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
for me, it's like if they want to see, they can look all they want. I don't care, because they're going to know that I am totally 100% into this man right here. And I mean, our dating was very difficult. It was high, we have a long story. It was great. I knew the second I saw him, he was my future husband. And the first time he had me pointed out to him, he was told that I was going to be his wife. So it was like these things like new. And then we like fought it. We both fought, and we were just great together. But I don't care if they look.
Well,
I'm going to be nice to them, and if they want to think their thoughts in their head, if they do, I'm not going to think that every boy is thinking that. I'm going to believe the best about these boys. And one time did I have an incident with a boy where twice he tripped me. Like once he kicked me, once he tripped me. But then the boys around him got really mad at him, and they told my husband. They told the other staff man who was there, who should have been watching his. But like he was the only one paid to work in the kitchen, and he disappeared for long periods of time. Where would he go? And he'd leave all of us just kind of like doing his job for him. Anyhow, and I'm like, where was he? Why isn't he watching the student? And so all the other students got really mad at that kid. And I'm like, well, I kind of feel bad for him, because I know that they're going to probably beat him up.
We kind of secretly brought students to our house for work crews.
Yeah.
To where we would sit down and play Xbox and eat.
And once for his birthday,
I need to help move stuff at my house. Can I get some students? Yeah, sure. Come over.
How many
Xbox guys?
And I'm gonna make cookies. And one time I made 3 trays of cookies, and I was constantly making cookies and constantly putting in front of them their board games.
No, I wasn't supposed to do that.
So sick. We were playing. Yeah, we played video games. We do whatever we could. I'd always have lots of food too when they came in. I'd be like, "What do you want? You want me to bring anything?" And I'd always have lots of food. And once for his birthday, I made a cake. But I'm like, what can I do for the boys that I know that they'll allow? So I got permission, and then I made a hostess snack cake with lots of hostess snacks and Debbie cakes, and all the boys can grab one of them and go. I'm like, because they never get anything.
Yeah.
Just to show them a little bit of love.
Wow.
We were all about just trying to show the boys that we actually love them, and thereby, because we show that we actually love them and still do. I talk to former students consistently on Instagram and Facebook and all that, but. Like I said earlier, we showed the boys that we loved them and cared for them, and they would respect us, and it worked.
And I don't expect them to like us to this day. I don't expect them to forgive us because we were staff there, or he was. I don't expect them to
Of course.
love us or anything, but to know that our arms are open unconditionally to each and every one of those boys, even if they weren't students while we were there.
Yeah.
Because we love them selflessly.
Me and my
You know,
brother.
if they have to point a little anger at us and somehow blame something, that's okay because they went through trauma.
We've housed former students. My twin brother has housed former students after they left there, kind of as a halfway home to get these kids adjusted to life.
We went into town once because we heard a kid got in an argument with another staff member who was always power tripping himself. And what they would do is take these 18-year-olds who didn't like a rule or didn't like the system or had a bad day. They would take them, give them very little time to pack up their things, drop them off in town, far enough away that they couldn't walk back to Agape with nothing.
Springfield.
And you think about all their Christmas presents, they didn't get those back. In fact, I haven't heard of a single student to this day who's actually received their Christmas presents. Once they're confiscated, and one kid is like, yeah, I saw my tennis shoes. I got, a friend had all these new tennis shoes on the table and they get confiscated. And then the next day they're on a Julio Sandoval's kids. That's what they'd say. But these kids never got their Christmas presents back. And when they were kicked out, they had nothing. So we went to town and we made sure this guy was set up. We took him to Walmart, we got him a phone. We made sure he was contacting his mom, letting him know where, and we just, I felt terrible.
And this is when you were on staff, you did this?
Yes. It was toward the end of our time there as well.
Right.
We started doing some things toward the end of our time that really ruffled some feathers, stuff like that. We went and got his kids set up, and we called homeless shelters because we couldn't bring them back on property.
Right.
And I wouldn't have money to put them up in hotels, so we called some shelters. We got him hooked up in the shelter. We went picked him up, took him to the shelter as he's bawling and crying because he's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So his family's in Texas. He's homeless now in Springfield.
And the town around Stockton, even if they do get back, they're all convinced that these boys are murderers.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Crazy people. So it's terrible for these young little kids who have no support back at home.
Yeah.
And then they're kicked out and basically told nobody wants you.
Yeah.
Wonder why the suicide rate is higher than it is for normal schools.
Speaking of
I already tallied hundreds of kids, at least 100 or more kids, maybe even up to 300 have been dropped off in the middle of town at Agape.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Christmas presents, I was on the Agape website just recently, and they have pictures now of kids with the presents on the tables and everything. And one of them was opening up a present and it was work gloves. Who the hell wants work gloves for Christmas?
Yeah. But when you're at Agape, that's a big deal because they're making you work in the wintertime, hauling rock, doing work with no gloves unless your parents send them to you.
Yo-yos.
So it's like, yo-yos or work boots.
Gloves, pens and pencils.
Yeah.
And those type of things. These type of pens were like gold at Agape.
Yeah.
This type of pen, you had the 301s or the 701s. People learn how to twirl them in their fingers.
Yep. Yeah, I can still do that to today.
I never could figure it out. I got to learn how to do it.
For like a couple years after we left Agape, I always had to write with my pen first to check to make sure the ink was the right color because he would switch them out because he didn't want the boys to take them. And I thought that was the funniest thing.
But so it was the, all these things were gold. It was the currency there.
Yeah.
Gloves were one of them. If you had good gloves, man, people wanted them, and so they'd gamble on them.
So that's not something that I, as a teen girl, would ever consider myself thinking was legit cool.
Yeah.
But that's what these boys, if they got to keep them, that's what they had.
That's all they had.
Well, and just so you guys know too, from another perspective, like you may not know the impact that you had being those kind of staff members there, like being someone that actually showed love to these kids. You may never know, but I could tell you from being a student, the staff members that were like that, they made an impact. Even though there's all this negative and bad stuff happening there, that was like a light in the darkness for us when we were there. And there was a staff that actually cared. So it's like the fact that you guys went out of your way to help these students even after they left with your minimal budget that you're being paid on the Agape salary to still help set them up and do these things, like that speaks so much more than all the damage that was done at Agape. So just if that helps out, like it's awesome to hear that you guys did that. Not trying to boast you up or anything like that. But
that's what a true Christian is. That's what a true Christian is.
Yeah.
Right.
It's what worries me is, the vocal students, the ones who attach themselves to James, we could help. What worries me is those silent students who internalize all that pain, all that trauma. who want someone to reach out and notice and love them and help them, but they don't ask. Like, if you're out there and you're watching this, let us know. We don't know who you are until you come to us and let us know. We'd love to help you. We'll do anything we can. We'll talk to your parents and let them know what Agape was really like if they don't believe you.
We've done
My
that.
own mother didn't believe me for the first year because she was so brainwashed as a parent when she was a parent of my brother who was there for 2 years. She was so brainwashed until they started retaliating against my husband because of my non-compliance. Because I would say, why do I need to do these things if you're not paying me? And why are you controlling and why aren't you abiding by these food health codes? And why are you using these boys? They get mad, and until they started retaliating against him, hurting his own work schedule, making him spend his meals in the intake, and constantly changing his. And she's like, I believe you now. I thought you were just complaining.
Right.
So we've talked to former
like
parents. We've talked to many former parents just to kind of say this. No, this what they're saying is true.
Yeah.
This stuff did happen.
Right.
Right. And that's why thank you for doing this podcast too, because I mean I'm sure we can keep going, but I feel like we could talk to you guys for hours, because I feel like, I could be wrong, but I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
Yeah.
What went on there?
Yeah.
Sure. We can do it again.
We've done quite a few interviews, and we've learned, how to scratch the surface, because there have been times where we've been in a discussion and we've dug in so deep on one issue, but there's so many different pieces that need to be touched and addressed, like the labor trafficking and like the the food code violations and the school. We didn't even get into some other stuff, but.
Yeah.
And of course,
It's just a certain amount of courage and bravery to be the first one to speak out so
yes.
publicly. But I was growing up, I listened to Pastor Pirate, I listened to the IFB teachings, and I listened to my parents telling us what you're supposed to do. Always do what's right.
Yeah.
Always do what's right.
Do right till the stars
Always do
fall.
what's right.
Oh my gosh. Oh. Yeah.
Well, if
True.
everyone around you isn't doing it, you got to.
Well, it's great because all the
Yeah.
IFB people will say, stand up for something, and then you stand up against what they're doing wrong, and it's like, oh no, not that.
Not that.
Don't touch that. Right. And that's what's happening. So.
Yeah. And like we were talking about, it's just you go down, when you go down the rabbit hole, it just goes down and just keeps going and going. And just when you think you've hit the bottom, they tunnel their way into another one and just keeps going down. Just keeps going down.
It's crazy. Like the research that we're doing, like there's a bunch of people that work on this Agape stuff, right? That we were in touch with, and the stuff that they find, like it's insane. Like how deep and the corruption goes into this. But then you look at the Agape Facebook page, and the Agape will post something about how innocent they are and how they're the victims in this stuff, and all these parents are commenting, may Jesus be with you, we're praying for you, and like it's like these parents are completely blinded.
And anyone who says anything to question, they disable their comment.
Yeah, you can't comment. So even if someone does comment something negative, it's deleted and thrown out, they're blocked from comment. I can't comment on Agape stuff anymore. But you see the letters that ma'am sends.
Yeah.
All the letters or Kathy sends says, hey, just so you know, all this stuff your boy is telling you is a lie.
Because he just wants to come home.
He just wants to come home, so he wants to get back into his old lifestyle. So he's going to lie to you to say anything.
But
so
while I'm
parents
telling
are
you this,
conditioned.
send us some Jesus money. Send us some Jesus money.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Jesus' birthday, send us the money.
yeah.
Campus Sevens, we are a multi-million-dollar campus, but we want to fix a toy train, so send us money.
Yeah, we had a so I could get into that deeply.
Well,
They're very quick on Yelp because I tried leaving reviews. I'm just a little open, but they would claim I was staff, and I was never staff. Excuse me, I did not have a single penny given to me for all my work there.
Yeah.
Not one dime. Nope, I was never staff. But they lie to Yelp and do whatever they can to get your reviews taken down. So
yeah.
When I found out you can leave tips as a staff, and I have 2015 tip on Yelp has gotten me so many phone calls with people. All it is, as a former staff, I do not recommend this place.
Yeah.
And that on Yelp has gotten me more phone calls than anything else. People can I call you? Can I call you? My son's there right now. Do I need to go pick him up? Yes.
Yes.
Go pick him up. I've gotten at this point 42 students either taken out or have or have been stopped from being sent to Agape. 42.
No way. That's awesome. That is so awesome. That's
Like the
Great
podcast we did, Griffey, with April, with Griffin Ross's mother.
yes, right.
Yeah, she learned pretty quick and got him out of there fast.
It's like they'll say they're going to give your kids medicines, but enough students have said that they didn't get their medicine upon arriving at Agape, and they'll say they'll provide counseling and treatment, and that's a whole other bull crap.
Right. Yeah.
They're not accredited licensed counselors. They don't believe in mental health issues, so the kids they don't need medicine. They just need
counseling is. And I heard the counseling is if you give your life over to Jesus more, then you're not. It's a twisted version of conversion therapy is already bunk, but twisted version of conversion therapy to where all your problems go away if you just die to yourself and give yourself to Jesus, which is completely ridiculous. Even as a pastor, it's completely ridiculous.
The day I went on antidepressants, and it was a hard step for me to take to actually admit I have a problem. I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and depression, and insomnia, and social anxiety disorder from Agape. But the day I started my antidepressants, I was very nervous. I fell at the bottom of the rung. I can't believe I'm doing this. Day 2, I noticed a difference. And I called my doctor. I'm like, oh my goodness, I noticed. He's like, well, I'm glad. Some people don't report differences until their second week. Usually takes up to 2 weeks. I'm like, I noticed on my second. It was like my life had been changed 180 degrees. I was given the reins again. I wasn't cured. Like I was still going downhill in my thoughts, but instead of going really fast and tanking and always being on my emotions would determine everything instead of being so quick to snap and just have anxiety all the time. I was calm. I was given the reins and nothing was controlling me. I was in my right mind. And it was like, okay, and now I can breathe. And now I can focus on what's actually troubling me, and I can get to the root of what's causing me this.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Now, some of these boys, they had issues. They did. Some did. But they needed qualified help to be able to deal with the issues. And intentions don't matter if the job's done bad.
And the
job's being done bad.
Sending a little 12-year-old or a 17-year-old, whatever the age is, sending them states away, hundreds of miles away from their homes, from their families, everything they know.
Right.
The only thought is my parents don't want me.
And they're told that at Agape, your parents didn't want you here. That's why you're here.
Yeah, you did this. Your actions have brought you here. I remember, but going back to what you're saying, James, about not. I don't say this in a derogatory way, but that Jesus is the answer to all your problems, right? I remember being at Agape, being sold out as a student, reading just believing everything, giving my life to God and everything. And I would go into the bathroom at night. I'd ask to go to the bathroom, and I would sit at the toilet, praying on my knees to God, crying because something was wrong. I was having these suicidal thoughts. I was depressed. I was suicidal. I'm like, but if I'm so close to you, I'm so dedicated to you, and all these problems are supposed to be gone now that I've given my life over to you, but I'm still struggling with depression. Something was, and I just remember crying and still struggling, and that was a disconnect. They would teach, you give your life to Jesus, all your problems are gone. All these issues, everything you dealt with, all these struggles with sins, with wanting to do drugs, with women, everything's going to be gone. And it's like, and when it wasn't gone, it was like, something is wrong with me. I must be screwed up that not even Jesus can fix me.
That's the mindset that goes to so many students. So many people I've talked to, and they think I just can't be fixed. I guess not even God can do it. And then that does a couple things. Is it turns people off to Christianity? Oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, because it's not supposed to do that.
Right.
Professional help. And if you have a mental illness, Jesus, he wants you to get help. I'm a pastor studying psychology right now. Okay, I'm trying to become a psychologist. And realizing the important, I want to be a licensed counselor because I realize how inadequate most pastors are for counseling. They're not trained for counseling. We're counseling depression. I don't know what I'm doing. Let me learn how to help you. But you have all these students who don't know what's wrong with them, and then they're told Jesus will help. Jesus doesn't help. Now what? Right. I must be worthless. I must be unfixable. I'm broken. My parents don't want me. Jesus doesn't want me. Who's going to want me?
Yeah, and no wonder they end up on drugs, committing suicide. Yes. Oh my God! And for parents to hear this,
it all ties together. Why kids are like that?
Jesus can help, but that's why we also have modern medicine. You don't just say Jesus will cure my diabetes. You take your insulin. So you need your
Right.
treatment. You need to actually talk to licensed people who are able to help you, who spent 10 years learning their subject material, not this guy who went to an unaccredited Bible college, got a little bit of training.
Oh, that science is bunk.
Yeah.
It's
right.
demons. It's demons. You are riddled with demons.
It's like, all right, so
They need
Mr.
help.
YouTube, you Mr. YouTube Google searcher are saying you know more than Mr. PhD, MD,
The Google
guy
doctor,
who studied
yeah.
that topic. Yeah, I'm gonna believe you.
And you,
Yeah.
have,
Google.
and you have boys who are out of control because they're not getting the help they need. Then they graduate, they're kicked out, or they leave on their own or whatever. And
Yeah.
they're still out of control, but now they're adults. And now they have to
Right.
pay for what they do. And
Right.
now they get sentences. And in jail, hopefully somebody sees them. And I'm not saying all these boys, not all these boys are running from jail. I'm just saying what happened to my brother. He didn't
Yeah.
get the help he needed at Agape.
No, yeah.
He did not get the counseling he needed. He did not get any kind of therapy that helped him. He didn't get anything that was promised to
He
help
still
him.
thinks that Jesus is gonna fix his mental illness.
He denies he has
Without help.
mental illness. He's very delusional. He has, and it kind of runs in the family. When you start looking into it, and it's being revealed to me recently in the last couple of years that it actually does run in the family. I'm not just crazy. So, and he thinks I will never take any kind of drugs from Satan. These God-hating, left-wing, liberal, demonic, antichrist. I'm like thinking, oh boy,
Wow.
oh boy.
Crack open the old King James Version Bible.
They don't
I got one
get
somewhere.
they don't get help at these boarding schools.
Right here, right? The old King
Then
James, right here.
Plus boarding school troubles and extra trauma
Yes.
now into
This
adulthood.
is
and
the
they
Demon
can't
Bible.
cope.
This is NKJV. It's the Demon Bible.
It's a Satan's Bible.
Oh.
Yes, that's what
Yeah,
Roloff.
I was gonna say his logo on it, right?
That's what Roloff
Yeah.
would. That's what Roloff used to say. So the King James Bibles is God's word, but all these other ones are just Satan's interpretations.
Yeah.
Some
Well,
New
Satan's
King
Bible.
James, I know this is really off topic, but some New King James has the symbol up top that everyone says is actually Satan's logo.
Oh my God.
Just like on the NKJV, just fun fact
Yeah.
there.
It's when I got to Agape, my family's Christian, right? So raised Christian, everything like that. But contemporary, I guess we label it. One of the things they gave me when I went to Agape, they put in my bag was a NIV Bible. And so when you get to Agape, they go through everything. They're getting
What's your
out.
problem?
Yeah. And they went through my stuff and they opened up the Bible. My family had written a nice letter in there to me about they hope this is going to help me in Agape. And they open it like, oh, NIV, this is of the devil, and they literally just threw it away. I was like, oh wow, but to them it wasn't the word of God, so it's not like they threw the word of God away because
And it's not their property to throw away either, but they'll do that all the time.
I spent years studying the King James Version translation problems. I could.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
that's a
really
whole nother. Yeah,
that's a whole other podcast.
open up a whole new can of worms.
yeah. Well, and I did some math real quick too, like going back to what you said about 42 students you helped either prevent getting sent there or also removed. And just assuming that's about $5,000 a month that those parents are paying, that's $2.5 million
Yeah.
that you helped remove, and which is probably just a slither to them of the money
Drop
that
in the
they
bucket.
have. But yeah, but still, like you would think that would have really hurt a company or hurt a business if you took $2.5 million away in 5 years from them. But obviously, it hasn't affected
No.
them at all.
No.
No. Well, I just feel with other people. It just the thing that I really want to I'm pushing for is the awareness here as well.
Yes.
I know so many people don't know that these places exist. I mean, one of the things that we've been pushing, of course, we've gone viral on TikTok and Instagram. Well, great tools to get the news out about what's going on in the TTI. So I put so much stuff go out on our Instagram story. Hey, would you like it if you found out that teens were abused in a school 5 minutes down the road from you? Oh, no, we wouldn't like it on all these polls on Instagram. Well, this is what's happening at Agape boarding school in Missouri.
Right.
And I get people now. I never advocate for bullying people we always wanted to make sure that whenever we protest, because what Agape's done is they've painted all the former students as erratic. So they kind of so if we act erratic, then it's going to feed right into their narrative.
And
so
former staff members as being bitter and
Bitter.
disgruntled.
So
Yeah.
now, of course, if people know us, that's just
I
completely
mean,
ridiculous.
why would you consider us
But-
disgruntled? You accuse us of having orgies. So.
So I tell all the former students we have to be above board. We have to be above par on all of it, because if we don't, I mean, it's not fair, but we'll play right into their narrative.
Yes.
So you don't contact, don't do all that kind of stuff. If you go protest at the place, don't go on the property because they will shoot you. No,
Yeah.
the previous protest, we found out just recently from a contact that Amanda has that the staff were in there. Some of the staff were in their houses with their guns, ready to go, just in case they decided to raid the property. They were going to come out, guns loaded, and start shooting people.
Can't
Wow.
shoot all of them.
That it was
They had to convince that we were going to have a takeover of the school when they had that protest a couple months ago.
Wow. Like
we're not about
we're out-
control. We're about freedom. Exposing.
Yeah.
the truth
You
for
think
freedom.
you think you were at Waco?
Exactly. When I was
Wow.
there was a former student that a former staff member that was banned from coming on property, and we heard a rumor that he was going to have on property. So they forced all the men staff member to arm. Well, we weren't forced to arm ourselves, but we had guns to carry our guns, get in a car, and we were to patrol the property for 3-hour shifts at nighttime. I'm riding around with a staff member, and I'm thinking, what the heck are we doing?
Yeah.
It's like the God Squad here from like the Jeff the Mormon,
FLDS.
yeah, from the FLDS God Squad type stuff, to where you're gonna come on our property, you're gonna die, right? You're gonna
Wow. But they would probably twist that as, you know what, we were protecting your kids.
exactly.
We were protecting their students, but then Graves, I've told this before on other podcasts. I remember Graves when there was a talk about a riot amongst the student body when I was a student there. Or I think maybe I just become staff around that time.
The child abuser or the porn addict?
Robert.
Robert, yeah, Robert, and he.
Just clarifying.
Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you did. But and I remember asking him, like, aren't you worried? Like, there's way more students than staff. Aren't you worried that they could just overtake the school? And he turns and pulls up the back of his shirt, and he had I don't know what kind of gun. I'm not a gun guy, but it was a handgun in his pants. And he's like, nope, I carry this with me every day. He's like, if ever it comes between a student or my family, I will not hesitate to take out that student.
Julio thing had a gun in his bag at all times. I didn't know about it for a long time, and when he did it, when he showed it to me, he just explained it away, and I didn't think anything of it for a while. And but he had a gun right around these students.
It's just a power trip.
Yeah.
Great. He didn't even attend his own daughter's graduation from high school because he wanted perfect attendance at the police academy.
Yeah.
So you care about your family that much, really? You won't come home if you don't like the smell of your home. You'll stay out till 11, 12, 1 until your wife finally calls you.
Yeah.
And you don't support your kids. You told your daughters that when they were turning 18, they were getting married and moving out of your house.
Which would happen.
And you didn't care if they got a job or went to college. They had to turn 18 and marry and get out.
Wow.
That's young.
Wow.
No world experience. Okay, no, that was power tripping, just wanting to carry a gun around and be justified and looking for the next threat so that you could.
Yes. Right.
Everything is a threat. Everything is something we have to control. We have to take.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. My blood is boiling. This has been extremely informative, mind you, but at the same time, it's hearing what they put the staff through. Like it's just as bad. You know, you hear of Amanda Householder, you know, like her being a student. A staff kid, and you know some of the stuff she shares about how it was. And as students, we thought you staff members, you guys were royalty. We thought you guys had it so good. We didn't realize that they were treating you guys like this. So
When a little girl can say, "I'm being abused by my brother," and staff cover it up and they won't report it to authorities, that's a problem.
yeah.
There's still an issue with that happened that we can't really divulge into, but
Yeah, that'll come out.
it'll come out soon.
Yeah.
To be continued.
Yes. We could definitely do another one of these. Definitely.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys have more to share, which I'm sure you do, dive into some of these things more. Like,
Oh, sure.
I think it would be good. So,
Yep.
but
Great. Well, thank you, James and Amanda, for coming on. I appreciate it, man.
It was an honor. Thank you for asking us. I followed your podcast and listened to a lot of you guys' episodes, so it was really awesome to be able to get on here and have a conversation with you guys. I've had conversation with former students who just have been so thrilled, to be honest. So thank you guys for what you guys are doing and really giving the students who haven't had a voice. And I want to thank you guys for that. That's just been amazing to hear some of my former students be able to actually tell their stories to people who actually listen. And I thank you so much for that.
yeah. That's the first thing when Jason had me on the first time, and I didn't know what was going to come of it, and I talked to him and I shared it, and that feeling that you're talking about, I remember having that, just him listening, even no one watched it, just having someone listen to me and believe me, and like I was like, man, this is so therapeutic. And I just started asking other guys, and they came on and they shared the exact. So if any former students are watching this, even if you think your story is just, it's not one to be told, it is, and it helps out so much.
Sure.
Just coming on and sharing and speaking about it, and then
And like I said,
matters.
and like I said, even if you had a great time there, come on, tell us.
yeah.
But I haven't had one yet. It's all been negative.
That's what I've told people, and when I had the conversation with the Kansas City Star, when there are things that Agape did right, I had no problem with how they did that. That's fine.
Yeah.
That's not something to complain about. There are plenty of things to look negative upon, and there are some students who've had a good time. Okay, they've had positive experiences. Okay, that's very, very few, like you said. And chances are they're not going to be the ones that come to this type of podcast. Chances are,
Right.
But it's all stories are important. Every single one. Every viewpoint is important.
And like Griffey had said, I mean, this school, Agape, could really do some good if they just actually help these kids. I mean,
If they would, I think they will.
I
don't think they ever will.
But they're too far gone.
Yes.
They're too far gone. I think the only thing that would be good for them if they got shut down.
There's someone
remove the Clementsons, their whole family, and remove all the corruption, all those
they still don't have qualified people.
They're so in love with money and power.
People, but they at least have a bigger heart.
Yeah, they're so in love with money and power. There's no turning around now. They've
You're
gone
right.
too far.
You're right.
So, but
Yeah.
anyway, so we could, if you want, we could schedule another one for later. Just keep in touch with us.
Yeah,
Either me or Griffey.
It's your podcast.
Either me or Griffey, one of the two. So, but thank you very much for coming on.
It was our pleasure.
Amanda, James, Griffey, you too, my friend. Thank you for
Once you get to Baltimore, you want to go out to eat, you let us know.
Yeah, we'll meet up.
love
Meet
that.
up when you guys get here.
Yeah.
For sure. We'll definitely link up. Yeah. I would love to do that.
That's
All
awesome,
right.
man.
So stay on the line, and I'm going to talk to you afterwards. I want to thank everybody for watching. If you would like to help support the podcast, please subscribe to it. And for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself. Take care of each other. We'll see you next time. All right.